Well, good afternoon all. I'll start with two thanks. Firstly to Tim and to all of you for the opportunity to come back. I used to be a regular here and I hope I'll be a regular in future. After 2 years away, it's nice to be back. I've seen some of you on Zoom calls. It's much better to see you all face to face. My second thank you is to my boss, Andrew Large. It's not every day you get your boss being your warm-up act. So thank you, Andrew. You did a very eloquent job of explaining what it is that we do. I say eloquent because he is, as I say, my boss. Seriously, we've had a huge 2 years. Andrew said everything about COVID and Brexit, and it really was unbelievably busy doing everything we did at times. And I've never really had the time here to explain what it is we do and why. So I think the two of us together today hopefully gives you a bit more education. So I'm going to talk about two broad themes. I have talked to you before about the Beyond the Box campaign, just a bit more of that today. But then I want to go into some of the legislation, the regulatory work, because there are some things coming that are going to be a big old headache. The Beyond the Box campaign, as I've said to you before, was established a few years ago, and we decided we're going to win over the hearts and minds of consumers. We'd been reasonably good at a B2B programme, putting promotional messages out to trade magazines. But the decision a few years ago was let's go out and try and influence 60 or so million people. And we've had some really strong years. We've averaged in the hundreds of millions potential reach. We've been in national papers. We've been broad on social media. We've done radio days and so on and so forth. We've been pretty successful so far. And in 2021, we had a great deal of success. You can see there some of the national coverage. You can see in the middle Max McMurdo. Some of you will know him, celebrity TV upcycler. We gave him some board. He made some modular tables and chairs and so on. And it was all about moving house and making use. And we tried to keep our message topical as we had the stamp duty opportunity to move house. We grabbed onto that, and we talked about people hoarding cardboard, everything that Tim referred to earlier about us all having too much of it in our garages. So we've tried to keep it topical. The message, which was about just raising awareness, telling people how good cardboard is, we're the sustainable guys, we've got high recycling rates, we're better than plastics. That moved on this last year to be more about you've got to keep recycling. Because if you don't keep recycling, we won't have the material for tomorrow. And of course, as you know all very well, we've heard from Saik already, you've got to recycle to make more boxes. And if it's in people's garages, then it's just not there, or it's not there in the same availability. So a lot of our message last year was about recycling, and overall you can see the numbers. Total potential reach 170 million people. In theory, everybody in the country saw our messages 2 or even 3 times. It doesn't quite work out like that, of course, but potential reach, very high numbers indeed. 173 times were in national, regional consumer media mentions, and I did a radio day at one point last year where I was out in front of 750,000 people. So we're getting the message out there. What are our messages? Well, it's all about recycling. If you haven't seen our website, we're Beyond the Box at cardboard.org.uk. If you remember nothing else from today, well, no, nothing else from my presentation today, then it's cardboard.org.uk. Do check out our messages, do have a look. In a moment, I'm going to come to our social media messages. Do make a note of those addresses as well. Social media has really taken off. We've done what's called dark posting before, where we place on someone's timeline. If you're on Facebook or Instagram, then there's a good chance that we've posted on your timeline because you've expressed an interest in environment or something like that. We place an advert on your timeline. We all get those pop-up adverts. They can be annoying. You sometimes turn them away. That's dark posting. What we did last year for the first time was set up our own channels. We are now available on Instagram, we're now available on Facebook. We'll come to the pages, the addresses in a moment. But in the period April to November, we had a potential reach there of 1.74 million. Now I'm really pleased with that, to start off from virtually nowhere and to be out to 1.75 million on social media. That's a pretty good hook. And the nature of social media, as you'll appreciate, is it's actually a lot cheaper to do than some of the big projects. So it's just possible in a few years' time, maybe as early as next year, we'll rethink the programme. The chair of the promotional committee is here in the room, and with her excellent assistance, we'll make sure this programme goes on to greater things. So maybe more social media in future. Before I come to the social media in more detail, what are we doing this year? Focusing on recycling. Our PR agencies come up with some great ideas. Apparently there are 3 big hurdles towards recycling. The first is people don't remember. They just forget to recycle. So Q1 this year is overcoming the bad habits. We're going to engage with a psychologist. We're going to look at some of the ways that people think, what makes you more likely to recycle, and we'll have a press release that will go out to national media. And that should get some big hits. We should see some big numbers if we get into the Daily Mirror, the Sun newspaper, and so on. Second hurdle, well, it's all a bit messy, isn't it? So that's engaging with social media influencers, perhaps an architect or some interior designer. How can they, the social media influencers, improve and beautify their own recycling areas? How can they encourage the public to put behind them the idea it's messy and try and get the idea that it can actually be more of an attractive thing? Third quarter, people are just confused. So we'll have some sort of light-hearted quizzing of the nation, get kids to quiz their parents, what do you know about recycling, mum and dad? And we'll find out a bit about what people know, what they don't know. And again, it'll be press release, it'll be national coverage. So across 3 quarters of this year, we focus very much on recycling, and we focus on the habits and the unsightly mess and the confusion, and we try and get over some of those hurdles. And then in Q4, as you can see, we're going to look at celebrating success. We'll do some sort of research. We'll find the greenest town, the greenest person, whatever it is, and we'll do something to celebrate success. And we'll play on the importance of community and that sort of thing as well. So very much about recycling this year. And throughout, social media is going to be key. These are just some of the images that we've had. If you're following us already on Facebook or Instagram, you may have seen them. If you're not following us on Instagram or Facebook, then please do. Instagram.com/BeyondTheBoxUK, Facebook.com/BeyondTheBoxUK. We're trying to keep it as simple as possible. Do follow us if you're on those media. Do encourage your colleagues, your employees, your friends and family to follow us. Obviously, with social media, the more people we've got following us, the better. I'm also on Twitter. Follow me if you like. I am no expert, but I'm finding my way through the morass that is social media. So various options there to pick us up, and we've got some great stuff. On the far right, you can see Box Boy. That's actually an animation. He's moving backwards and forwards. Does he put the boxes in the right recycling bin, or does he get it wrong? We play it like a simple game. We're engaging. We're trying to get some thinking going. So a lot of good stuff happening on social media. And again, please do follow us if you're not already. Right. Regulatory issues. I'm going to rattle through this. There isn't time. We've heard about some of this already, but do please keep your heads up, because some of this is going to be very important. Colleagues from SAICA mentioned extended producer responsibility. If you haven't heard of EPR, you will. PRN system at the moment. You pay what is frankly quite a small amount of money. You're part of the whole supply chain. Your paper suppliers pay a small amount. You as converters pay a slightly larger amount. But the lion's share of the cost of PRN system is with the brands and the retailers. The good news with EPR is that it's all going on to the brand owner customers. When government says producers, they mean brand owners. But, bold face at the bottom, there is a line in the consultations that says if your customer has a turnover of less than £1 million, that's total turnover, not their packaging spend. If their total turnover is under £1 million, you as converter may still pick up the brand owner responsibility on the thinking that they're too small to handle it. Quite why you should have any more capability than them, I don't know. But there is a possibility that you will pick up that brand owner obligation. Now, what does that mean? Again, I don't have the time, but total PRN system costs UK industry about £150 million a year. £100 to £150 million across the country. New cost, EPR, about £3 billion. And that's going to be spread across the brand owners, but again, may come to you. We don't know any more than that yet. We're waiting on government to tell us what they're going to do. They were supposed to tell us in December. They didn't. At some point this quarter. So EPR, you will hear more. Deposit return scheme, consistency of collection. There's a lot of detail there. This is the sort of thing that we're always looking at. As Andrew said, we've always got to prioritise where we speak, which consultations we reply to, and when we speak to ministers. Environment Act, again, that was mentioned briefly by SAICA earlier. This is the overarching umbrella legislation passed in November last year. This is important because it lays the groundwork for secondary legislation. Ministers, MPs can now come along and say we want legislation on such and such, Environment Act made it possible. Why is this so important? As you can see, an important clause in Environment Act was going to regulate the single-use plastics. It was amended at the last minute with no time for anyone to change it to single-use packaging. That now opens the door for any secondary legislation to be on any single-use packaging, which could include corrugated and not just on single-use plastics. No more than that yet. There isn't any secondary legislation to follow, but what we CPI need to do is get onto this, and we're already in the process of lobbying ministers in the way that Andrew outlined, saying you've got to appreciate, Minister, that it's not just about reuse. Don't think reuse is always best, because it isn't. You must have capability to keep going with recycling as well. Other areas which may be of less importance to you, food contact. Those of you in food contact packaging will still be working to the European legislation simply by default because no UK legislation has come in. That means you're working to something called the Framework Regulation. You may be following the German BFR Recommendation 36. There's all these technical details that you don't need to worry about too much. Changes will come to UK legislation at some point. We're close to the Food Standards Agency. We're trying to make sure, not just as paper industry this time, but as a supply chain across all materials. We're saying to Food Standards Agency, what do you need to know from us, the supply chain? How can we help you? Because when their legislation changes, we need to know what it is. So I'm part of a newly reformed group called the UK Food Packaging Alliance, something like that. So we're close to Food Standards Agency, trying to preempt any changes that may come. Recycling as well, Andrew mentioned this. We've got these guidelines, you can see the picture there, they're on our website. This is us, the CPI's membership, saying this is what you need to do to the brands if you want your packaging to be considered recyclable. We're moving now into a new online tool which will come to fruition this quarter, and that's about those brands being able to do their online check and make sure that they meet the criteria and can get a yes or no from us that they are recyclable. That's my whistle-stop tour. I hope I haven't taken up too much of your time. Do be aware that it's not just about the lobbying of promotion, important though it is. This year it's about EPR and a lot of changes to come. Tim, thank you.